Hi, I'm Kirsteen McCulloch. I'm the Executive Director of Artsco. It's the Arts Council of the Central Okanagan. Artsco has been around since the early 1950s. It became a charity in 1968. And over the years, our role has changed in the community. And today, our current focus is on creating barrier-free public art experiences, both indoor and outdoor, and this is a great example of that. So the focus on the four elements really came out of my experience with the McDougall Creek wildfires. I was actually shocked. I wasn't around in the Okanagan in the 2003 wildfires, although I'm originally from the Okanagan. I was living in Vancouver, and you see all these things on the news, but to experience it yourself made a big difference. And really what captured my attention on that day was the sound of the wind and the roar of the wind, coupled with this catastrophic experience that we saw unfolding in front of us, and the image of fire. And the fire to me actually transformed in my mind into galloping horses. So I was seeing flames galloping across the mountainside, and just looking at that and reflecting on being in the land here at the lake, the elements started to float in my mind of water, earth, air, and fire. So the artists that I selected for the exhibition, I'm very lucky in my role as the Executive Director and Curator for the Arts Council of the Central Okanagan, where I get to interact with a lot of people in the community, and in particular artists and art lovers. So each of the artists that are selected for the exhibition, there's 8 artists. They're all local-based Okanagan artists, and each of them I've worked with before. So either in a volunteer experience, working on other exhibitions, in partnership with UBC. We've had experiences of working together. So for me, the selection was easy from people I knew, but really the focus on the theme of the exhibition being the 4 elements, and looking at the Okanagan from a geological perspective from its formation 12,000 years ago when the glaciers began to melt, to today's current events of wildfires and development and ecosystems changing. Each of the artists in this exhibition have a commentary regarding those themes. So each of the artists in the exhibition I've worked with before, and Fern Helfand. Fern's video work evokes the idea of a voyeur watching a scene unfold on an Android device, and for me this really represents the threatening times that are upon us in certain regions where unsustainable forestry practices have damaged the environment and climate. But what you'll see in Fern's work, both the video and her sculptural work, is she's offering us some hope, a glimmer of hope, and really looking at this fragile balance, and it hinges on our choices and the potential for renewal. So although there's a dark undertone, it's sparked with optimism. Wanda Lock is a local. She grew up in Oyama, and her work reflects her experience being evacuated during the McDougall Creek wildfires and watching the landscape of her child home in Oyama change. When she was looking at the landscape, she was reflecting upon how there used to be dense vegetation and ponds and all of the creatures that come along with a pond, and that had dried up in the summer of 2023, and then we had the McDougall Creek wildfire. And from just reflecting on the changes of the environment, Wanda was looking at the landscape, and that really brought forth the theme of the elemental force of water. That In Time with Butterflies explores the universe's interconnectedness, and this sculptural piece to me reflects the butterfly effect that illustrates how small actions can certainly have a ripple effect that go beyond the Okanagan Valley and to the world in general. And when I look at this piece, it's light, it's airy, it's full of interesting pieces. But again, it really reflects on choices that we make, and you'll notice that there's some dark undertones in that work as well. Andreas Rutkauskas, his work is focused on fire-affected ecosystems, and his photography captures elemental forces and darker emotions, both literally and figuratively, using outdoor strobes to illuminate individual members of ecological communities impacted by wildfires. And when I look at the impact of fire in the ecosystem of the Okanagan in general, when I look at Andreas's work, I feel optimism and hope, but I also know that if we don't make some changes, man's imposition on the land will be felt, in a more catastrophic way in the future. So 3 artists collaborated on our work: Joanne Gervais, Alison Beaumont and Shauna Oddleifson. This project uses augmented reality and leveraging technology to evoke a dynamic depiction of the landscape over time. And the AR experience itself shows an effects of drought, wildfires, and other climate-related changes. And for me, it's the magic of using technology to evoke a storyline that's unexpected and delightful and also scary and horrifying at the same time. Julie Oakes. Julie is a prolific artist. I was delighted to work with her in this exhibition. She's got two pieces in the show. One's a sculptural piece and one's a painting. And Julie really focused on the impact of change that's happening in our ecosystems in the bat population for her sculptural piece, and really invites viewers to contemplate connections between transformation, survival, and our own adaptability in a rapidly changing world. Julie's painting is seen, it depicts the earth as seen from afar, and for me personally, it really evokes the idea of having to step outside yourself to look at issues, and sometimes we become myopic and we're looking too closely at what's happening in detail around us when in fact we have to look broader and beyond, and what a better place than beyond the earth to look and reflect upon what's happening on our planet. Dr. Michelle Jack. Dr. Jack and I have worked on a couple of exhibitions, and when I was reflecting upon what was going on in the Okanagan and really pulling together my thoughts on this exhibition, her thoughts and our conversation echoed in my mind. And one of the things that she said to me is we have to listen to the land and know what it wants us to do. And it's not from a Western cultural perspective, but listening to the ancestors and the land itself. And having grown up in the Okanagan, myself, Dr. Michelle Jack, also grew up in the Okanagan in Penticton, and having such a diverse perspective of ideas from our two perspectives of both growing up in the Okanagan, but in discussions with Michelle, I was looking at the Okanagan from a very different lens, and it really evoked the idea to me of having to be mindful of where we are, how we impact the earth, and knowing that we are visitors upon this land. This exhibition for me really connects to the Okanagan from a cultural and heritage perspective, because when you look at the Okanagan Valley and we look at the Western landscape in general, often people don't think of it as being an ancient landscape, and we actually are standing in territory, Okanagan Silex territory, here at the Okanagan, or the Kelowna Art Gallery, actually is a location where pit houses used to stand. So from an Indigenous perspective, really linking my experience of growing up in the Okanagan, observing the landscape changing, and reflecting on the history, both geological and the formation of the Okanagan Valley through glaciation, and to looking, fast forwarding today's landscape and what's going on in the Okanagan and the rapid urbanization and development that's going on. And for me, it's really reflecting on looking at our history, not just our history of what's happened in the last 200 years with European settlers coming, but also looking at our Indigenous history, looking at the Indigenous peoples, the history that they bring, and also looking at the landscape itself and saying it was formed 12,000 years ago and continues to form and change, but I think it's important that we're aware of the change that's happening all around us. For me, what I would like visitors to take away from this exhibition is really, this is a place for community conversation. And when I look at the community space of the Kelowna Art Gallery and our ability as Artsco to come in and provide some curatorial direction on what's going on in that space, it's really creating community conversation and leaning into topics that are sometimes a little bit challenging when it comes to climate change and what's going on in the community. But I think it's a safe space where we welcome everyone to come in and have a conversation and reflect on the four elements, reflect on each of the artists in the exhibition, and listen to what they're telling us. And my message to everyone would be, be mindful and listen to the land and respond accordingly.